The regular meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission is called to order at 5:03 on March 14th, and here is the main guy.
Chair Akins.
Here.
Vice Chair Quinn.
Here.
Commissioners McCready.
Here.
James. Here. Convery.
Here.
McHatton.
Here.
And DuPoit absent.
Yeah, Elise called me, and she is sick with the flu and wanted to spare us all our first or second or third round of that, so she volunteered to stay home today. Thank you, Elise. And gave me permission to relay that for the excused absence. Roll call, we did that. Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sweet. Public communications. A member of the public wishing to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card and file it with the secretary. Cards are available in the council chambers lobby. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the chair. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and must direct their comments to the chair, not the audience or press. While the Historic Preservation Commission is in session, members of the commission, city staff, and members of the audience are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. I roll. Museum Rep. Mark Lewis.
Thank you, Chair Akins.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair Quinn, commissioners, staff. Museum tomorrow night, as it happens, 24 short hours from now, we'll be hosting our usual participation in Third Friday, the Downtown Merchants monthly institution, and during which the museum will be open for free, 5:30 to 7:30, and we are, in addition to our usual fare, hosting the music festival's Bravo program. They bring a truck full of instruments over for people to come and play on. If you ever wanted to play a Stradivarius, you're out of luck. But if you want to play something a little bit more modest than that, maybe it's time to get your mellow on with a cello, whatever. Come on by, and the instruments will be there, courtesy of the music festival. And you also can take the opportunity, of course, if you haven't seen our current exhibit, which is called From the Earth, Ceramic Art, pottery, ceramics, so wonderful stuff. It goes back to late, great golden oldies like Otto Heino and Beatrice Wood and Frank Noyes, but also carries it forward to today, including some quite young ceramicists. I think at least one is under 30, which is nice. Nice to get a little bit of a youth energy in there. So come on by, see the show, pluck an instrument. Also this weekend is the last weekend to see our current show, art show in conjunction with the city. The artist is Karen Lewis, who is my mother, yes. So with that caveat, but a wonderful artist. Look at that painting there. Look at that painting there. And down the hall and at the museum. Well, that all comes down this weekend, so come on by to see it. And guess who's next? Gail Childress. So that'll be great. And that's what we got.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And Community Development Director Connolly, welcome back. Where do we take public comment, just in case Jamie wants to say anything? Huh? Now? Okay, I kept looking for it in the agenda. Jamie, did you want to say anything? I'm
really here to sit in for the Pixie Month penance.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, within the public. Okay, I just get through the reading and go. Okay, so you would like to speak on item number 2. Did you turn in a card for that, Mr. Fleming? Oh, okay. Okay, there we go. You're the presenter. My mind is racing. One of those days. Okay, minutes of the February 14th, 2014 meeting. Do we have any changes, any additions, any? Nope,
I'll make a
nope.
motion, the minutes are approved as presented.
Second.
Do we need to vote on that, Sherry?
Aye.
So be it. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move to item number 2. This, Mr. Connolly, do you have a staff report for us?
I do, and it will be a very brief one. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, is that this is a proposal to put up temporary pennants on all 27 arches of the arcade. This would be to celebrate the Pixie Tangerine Month in Ojai. I understand these have gone up many times before, but I do not believe have been before this body for a few years, is my understanding. They would be going up the end of this month and up for a period of 2 weeks, I think, and then you've got the tennis tournament starting, so there's a pretty tight gap when those would be going up. As I said, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. You have a sample of one of the pennants included in the staff report. The dimensions are cited there. I know I saw one in person last week, so I know what they look like in the flesh. And I believe we have the Chamber of Commerce represented here if there's any additional questions on this proposal. So that concludes my report.
Okay, great. Thank you. Darwin, where's Terry Hill when we need him, huh? This is
And Rose Boggs.
And Rose Boggs.
And
This
so
is-
the reason this, just a little institutional history why this is
Please,
coming back to
Please,
us,
yeah.
is that, we had former commissioners that really didn't want to have anything hung in the arcade arches. And so some of the groups that had things hanging in the arcade had done so for many years. And Pixie came to us a few years back, and so what we agreed is that we would approve it and that they would come back and re-up. And so that's what this is tonight. Am I correct in that? I think so.
Yes, that's correct. And I think as part of the decision, if this was something where you were comfortable with the design and the design did not change, it could be something that we could then just do administratively over the counter. Unless the design changed, it would come back before you. That's your option. Or if you would want to see it every year, we could do that as well. I mean,
Okay.
my view, I would recommend if you're comfortable and it doesn't change, that it would be an administrative function.
And part of the issue has been in the past that the Pixie Fest, or the Pixie Tangerine Month, or the whole Pixie pennant policy was the issue. Part of the issue was the fact that it wasn't attached to a specific event, such as the music festival, tennis festival, certain items that take place on that. And so that had, as well as what Commissioner McCready said, that was a big, that was somewhat of an issue for commissioners too, that it almost, in early postings, came across as more of an advertisement rather than a celebration. Again, because it wasn't tied to an institutional event that was taking place. So,
Right.
Other comments, other questions? Yes, Commissioner McCready.
I was waving it.
Oh,
No,
hi, Johnny.
I
Yes,
love
go
the
ahead.
sign. I think as long as the artwork doesn't change, I would like to see it just move forward as an administrative approval. And I love pixies. I think they're wonderful.
They are.
And I'm excited that we have a Pixie Tangerine Month, frankly. I think everyone should know about it, so I like it.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
No,
Not
but
quite.
it could be.
We're getting
I-
there.
I
Yes,
agree as
Commissioner
well.
McCatton.
I think the font is great, the colors are great, pixies are really tasty, and I think it's good to celebrate it,
The unique thing about Ojai.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
I was in Hawaii, and there was Ojai pixies.
There was.
Yes.
Wow. Yes, Jimmy, you want to come to the podium?
I just,
Pl-
I'm new as the chamber head, but, and I could see how you might look at this as advertised, but see, I look at it in a 17-year resident and trying to also energize things in the city. To me, it's more of a celebration of Ojai. It might not be attached to an event, but I think it's attached to the city. I have Vogue magazine trying to find out the timing of when the blooms hit, so they can send out a photographer. And that's, again, a great celebration to me of the city. It's not really, I can't say it's an event as much, but I'm getting restaurants, Zoo and all calling us saying, hey, it's happening, right? Because we want to have, Pixies flavors and stuff. So I look at it more as the city doing something as an activity as a whole, which is, I think, kind of refreshing.
Yeah, we've seen that in the past, from the early years. I don't know if this is the third time or fourth time it's come before the HPC, but I know there have been, not to single out places, but flavored yogurt at their location. I imbibed. It was really good. I was disappointed when it wasn't there anymore. So, yes. So I agree personally. I love seeing things that are featured that are unique to our community. Other comments?
Can I just ask a question as staff who's new here? I've heard of the Pixie Tangerines. I just wondered, was that variety developed here? Or if anyone knows, this was just for my own knowledge.
Yeah, Jim
'Cause I always
Churchill
see-
is the pixie guy, and he has the little tiny kushes, I think. He has all varieties.
Okay, because I don't see them like up in the Bay Area at Farmers Market. A lot of varieties, but I never see the Pixies
He
except here.
sells at Monterey Market in Berkeley. I mean, he sells all up on
Okay.
the coast. So if you saw them, they're from here.
Right. And that's when I do, the name Ojai is always attached to, it doesn't just say Pixie, it says Ojai Pixie. So anyhow, I just wondered how that worked.
And Tony Thatcher probably takes a flatbed full down to the farmer's market at the Rose Bowl. I think it's Sundays.
Yeah.
Okay. And they go out to different farmers markets, with the different family members that are involved in it. So they're good. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the pennants and that we also allow the Pixie Tangerine pennants to be an administrative approval going forward unless there's a design change.
I will second.
Roll call.
Please.
McCready?
Yes.
James? Yes. Convery?
Yes.
Quinn?
Yes.
Aiken?
Yes.
McHatton? Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, Jamie, for being here.
Be sure to take them down on time.
I think they have to come down because I think the test is right smack on it.
Fabulous. I love it. Okay, moving right along to item number 3, Downtown Historic District Ad Hoc Committee update. And I think I saw for item number 3, it said discussion, no staff report. Okay,
Can I start a discussion?
absolutely.
On the two ad hocs, the one that's the outreach, I had asked Thais and Cindy to both work with me on it because I have a tendency to I'm really good with PR, I'm good with public outreach, but I'm not a homeowner or a property owner. And to have two historic property owners that understand frustrations, understand the realities of working with the city, I thought that the balance of me being able to I may come into Leslie Knope, a little bit too cheery, and I thought they would bring me down to reality and help balance the public outreach to be able to really have a good conversation and have them be more in tune to what property owners might feel and might face. So, and they both agreed to work with me on that ad hoc.
Great, thank you. Other comments? I'll just go on our side. Lisa and I are the other ad hoc committee. We have pretty much informally divided it up between Elise doing what Elise does great, and that is looking at potential areas within the downtown corridor of the city of Ojai, and then looking into the history of those locations. It's beneficial if you look at the city of Ojai landmarks, you can see any number of landmarks that are within that district. And also trying to come up with a suggestion on what should be the districts. My part of it was to find historic districts that are already in place and to track down the methods they used, maybe try to find out what worked, what didn't work. Interesting thing, one of the places that popped up in my search was Washington, D.C. And I think we've kind of thought that, the downtown historic district might be like a triangle. If I looked at the Washington, D.C., and it almost looks like a gerrymandered historic district. So I think that might be something that we could keep in mind, that in looking at contributing or non-contributing, I think that was the word for it, that, that we might be able to, rather than some type of triangle, might make it a little bit more inventive in doing that. So again, we'll look at that, but there are several locations. The Downtown Historic District in Moore Park was actually just recently in the news, with somebody trying to impede on their historic district, and saw that pop up in news feed. So my site is more proven methods or unproven methods in getting a historic district in place, and Elise is more on the actual historic characteristics of what we might be wanting to include. Other comments, Commissioners?
I have a question.
Yes.
This might be for Luke a little bit more than if I come across an article, or you come across an article that might have cross-reference, can we send them to each other?
I really don't see why not on an informational thing like that. That's not something that you're deliberating on. It's informational.
Okay.
So I mean, I think even if you want to send it to me, or something you think is worth calling attention, that would help you go through the process, yeah, I think that's completely fine, because it has nothing to do with deliberating an agenda item before this body.
Great. It's just, if I come across a city, or you come across a city, we might want to share
Yeah, I
that
think that's a
information.
great idea. And I think maybe if we're a little worried, we can always send it to Luke, and then Luke can send it back out to everybody, just to keep it clean.
And if I ever had a real question, I would make sure I contacted our city attorney. But the type of thing you're talking about here, that's completely fine information sharing.
Great.
Brian,
Commissioner Convery? Yes.
do you know where that Moore Park article is? Could you send it out? I'd like
Yeah,
to see
I'll look for it. What else? For the downtown historic, I'm sorry. Well, let's see, how often should the ad hoc committees meet? And again, I think, at one point, do we want to try to put a timetable in it? Because right now, I think, I have no idea on how long this might take. So maybe if we just keep gathering information and see how slow the stone is rolling down the hill and picks up, maybe we can just continue to do the informal reports, and within the next few months come to a schedule. Does that sound good to everybody? Because I haven't a clue. But it's fun to see. There's a historic district in downtown Los Angeles. I mean, again, these areas just popped up, and I'm like, oh, cool. I got to find this place and go drive around.
There's one in San Diego too, I think, the Gaslight District.
Oh, uh-huh.
There's several.
Yeah, there's a lot of good places. Okay. Any other discussion on?
So if we did ever want to visit, we could never go together, though.
Yeah, I don't think.
That's something we'd
Yeah.
have to go in two separate ad hocs. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good question, though.
So it sounds like we should set our first ad hoc meetings after tonight amongst ourselves, and then we'll have a meeting and maybe come back next month and have some kind of a summary outline of how we want to approach that.
I think that would be great. I know Elise and I were trying to get together this week. Thank goodness we didn't. I've already had my cold flu bug. But yeah, so we do plan on meeting in either an informal meeting, just getting together on the phone, or meeting in person. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. What's next? Future agenda items. Community Development Director Connolly. So in the future, before the agenda goes out, I would appreciate if you and I can get together. We didn't get together this month. Last month, a couple days before, or maybe a couple hours before the agenda was to go out, I ended up calling Susan, because because we had a number of items that had been carried forward from the prior meeting, so.
Okay.
If you and I could, earlier in that week, get together and make sure we have everything on the list and are moving forward.
I agree. I know that had come up at a previous meeting. I think it's a very good idea
Okay.
to do that.
And the city council will be starting, we're in March, so I anticipate they will be starting the more formal budget process in this next month. Do you have you gotten any feelers on requests from you for a budget?
I haven't
Estimates
yet,
for
but
next year?
on this, I know what your priorities are too, and I'd be happy to hear from you on this. I mean, you can always ballpark these things. I realize these would involve getting historic reports done. I'm assuming the downtown historic district is going to be more involved and more costly than doing an individual site.
Right.
Though it's hard to know exactly, from having just gone through this on the Playhouse, the range of estimates we got went from over 3,500, 3,600 to over 13,000 for the same scope of work.
Yeah,
So that's pretty wide range.
That's also why we had suggested when we had our group meeting with city council was to, if we couldn't do it all in 1 year, to maybe break it up so we could just keep moving forward.
Right. Great. And I get the sense too that you have 1, 2, 3, that they're actually prioritized, because obviously there's a lot of emphasis on the historic district. I sense that's a higher priority for this body than the Boyd Center or the library, if you had to choose in terms of the budget.
Yeah, there was a vote that took place at the
Yeah.
last meeting.
Right. But I'm happy to try to look at if these are the 3 items, to try to get a realistic estimate for what we think, at least getting a report done for these 3 in the course of the fiscal year. If I had to look off the top of my head, you're probably looking at $30,000, something like that.
For the historic district.
Yeah, and it might exceed that for these 3 sites, but I'm just saying a rough estimate.
For
the 3.
For all 3, not just for the historic district.
Right,
Okay.
right. I'm assuming we can get somebody that would do the historic district. If you had 30,000, say that's 50%,
Okay.
maybe 60% of that, and then maybe the other 2 sites you could do within the rest. Just a ballpark, but again, like I said, it depends. We had firms ranging from 3,500 to over 13,000 for the theater, and that's recent.
So 2 questions. One, do you have experience doing a historic downtown district?
I have never worked on establishing one. I've worked in a lot of cities that have,
Oh,
whether
okay.
it's a downtown, but historic districts within. Certainly, City of San Jose had several. McLaren subdivision was a turn of the 20th century residential subdivision. A lot of cities I've worked in have had historic districts, but I've not worked to establish one.
Okay. So then a follow-up question on that. Do you have professional folks that that are maybe in these historic districts or in these cities that have historic districts that we could contact and drop your name?
I'm not sure if my name would mean as much now, because I worked in some of them a while ago, but I certainly would be happy where cities I've worked in where I know the districts were there, say even 20 years ago, to get those on your radar. Yeah, if you
Sure,
want
that
to
might
do
be
research.
helpful both for myself and for
Right. Yeah, I suspect a lot of the
Commissioner
cities have
McCaffrey.
added more districts since I was there. But, some of them are older. When places I worked in the 90s that had established districts, it would be good, I think, to at least get the information on that.
Okay.
I found one really helpful historic district is Pasadena. If you can contact people in there, and they have a lot of information on their websites too.
Great.
I would suggest, too, because I also know when you had mentioned Suzanne here, Suzanne Regal, our planner, she'd worked 17, 18 years in Santa Barbara. I would be reasonably sure they have more than one historic district in that city. So
Yeah, that was one of them that I read on and talking about, the preservation that took place in downtown there in the
Right.
Presidio area.
right, and now Pasadena, South Pasadena, I'm thinking those neighborhoods there, that would seem like they would qualify.
I think we also had a guy on our USC course from Glendale. Do you remember?
there was a
that
couple in Glendale.
Really, really helpful.
Yeah, and then during our joint meeting, somebody mentioned that there was one in Lompoc, right?
Oh, I didn't hear
And
that.
I think it was Lompoc.
I didn't either, but
I'll have to
Love
check the,
Lompoc.
watch the
Yeah,
video.
it's not that uncommon. You might find more than, you might be whittling down things that are more on
Yeah,
point
fill the
for
page.
Ojai, because there's a lot.
Well, that's why I was thinking, if we look for something that's more, 8,000 residents, or, this valley, versus something that's massive, like Pasadena is very big, so
Yeah.
if we can find more apples to apples for comparison.
I would think one, I had done some looking around, writing an adaptive use staff report recently for city council, and it was like, city of Sonoma is about 10,000 people.
That's
And
good.
they linked adaptive reuse was really feeding into their historic preservation. They really linked the two. So I can't remember if it said they actually had a district, but I think they would be a good example to
They
look
have a
at.
lot of, the buildings in
Around that town
Sonoma.
square that they have, I would,
Yeah.
that sure seems like it
Pretty
would be
sure
a
that's
historic district.
yeah.
So, and that would be a good size, I think, city to look at.
And also, what about Buellton? Anybody know about Buellton? Because it's got a complete Swedish
It does, just for the
Solvang.
theme for the,
Solvang.
yeah, Solvang.
Mhm.
I'll check into Solvang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't know about the history of downtown Solvang, but it's got some interesting history around it. Okay. Great. Thank you all.
No, sure.
Okay, informational items, future agenda items. When we get to the planning report, are you going to give us an update on the theater?
Sure, I can, or I could do it now. Well, the only update I have is I
Go
think
ahead,
we're
if you
certainly
would,
on or
please.
possibly even ahead of schedule on the draft. So
Oh,
I'm
nice.
certainly hoping by the end of the month to have a draft report in hand. So that was traded some emails on that today to find out, and I see here it's got no later than April 15th, so we're probably 2 weeks ahead of that.
Now, I heard the theater was sold.
Not sure. I've heard rumors, so I don't know if it actually was.
I mean, if it was sold before the historic report, how does that work? That's what I'm wondering.
I just try to be objective of the report, and the landmarking is you're looking at the building and the facts regardless of who owns it. That's, I think, how you have to look at it. There's no development project on file to alter the building. So I think you just proceed with, you're looking at it objectively regardless of ownership. That's what I would say.
Okay. Do you want to give us an update while you're doing updates on the passage of the Historic Preservation Commission terms? Last Tuesday night, I saw you in the lobby.
I just know that it was finally finalized, that's all. I really had not looked at it since the end of the ad hoc committee in terms of, the final. I know it came back here as sort of what I would guess a courtesy review.
It was.
And Elise had some more basic wordsmithing changes that will be
Mhm.
incorporated into the final draft. But at this point, I consider a final ordinance.
Okay, so one of the things that was discussed in the last meeting in February and the first meeting in March, last Tuesday, was the way the vote went. Did you understand what Johnny was proposing, Cindy? And I believe
was
that's what finally passed.
extremely disappointed with what happened. Every historic district, the wording on the National Register and the wording on the State Register are one vote per owner. Every historic district that I'm aware of has one vote per owner. I was actually invited to a cocktail party with the president of the National Trust and the President's Circle and the Pasadena Historic Society and the LA Historic Conservancy, Linda Dishman, and they all talked about one vote per owner, not one vote per parcel. And so I was really surprised when right before my comments came up, Mayor Johnston threw out a third option that I'd never heard of. That was, I still don't know what it was, some weird hybrid that nobody else has, that it's like please everyone or please no one situation, and I don't know what it was. It's like one vote per owner, but some parcel thing it was a weird hybrid that's not used anywhere else. So once again, Ojai creates its own precedent, and we will see how that turns out since no one's ever done it before, even though the state and the National Register have been doing this for 60 years and came up with the one vote per owner for very good reasons. So
That's
we
not what
shall
I found in the
see.
state of California when I researched.
I
found there
spoke
was
with them, but
more
I mean,
people. Well,
yeah.
anyway, I spoke with individual people
Who?
from. I could go back and look, and I found out that there was more.
But who did you speak with?
I said I can
Like
find out.
people? I spoke to
I
the
spoke to the
state
people in each city, Fresno.
who
blah.
own buildings,
No,
or they run the
anyway, what I
historic
found out from
districts?
who I talked to was that there was quite a few that did it by parcel. It wasn't more, they did it by owner. If anything, it was 50-50, but I think it was more by parcel. But I can go back
I
and
know.
look and. let you
It doesn't
know.
matter, I just brought it up as an information because
I
it-
spoke
it-
with the
it's-
state of California office.
Well, that's good, but I spoke
Yeah,
with
so-
each individual person.
And I had done my own
Historic
mea culpa in the
preservation.
first meeting. So what's passed is passed, and again, it was a hybrid that Mayor Johnson put forward. So I think basically we'll have to wait until, is the next step then that it will show up under the municipal code on the City of Ojai website?
Yes, like all ordinances, it will become part of the code.
Do you
at
know
that point.
how much time that takes to?
Yeah, I honestly didn't know. Is that to get it online, to get in the elect? So it may be 6 months, maybe it's less. I'm not sure.
Can I ask a question? We were holding off on doing 2 of the brochures because wanted to make sure that our ordinance matched the brochure. So even though it's not into, can I?
still use the attachment from the city council meeting.
Perfect. So we can move forward with that. Okay.
Right, it's an effective ordinance. It's just, yeah, when it shows up electronically to the public, yeah, but the ordinance is effective as of now.
Thank you.
And really, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you find it? Like,
So that's what I was going to say. So the latest version was an attachment for the meeting that took place Tuesday night. The only changes to that were some small grammatical changes that had been changed, had a line under them indicating they should have been deleted. They weren't. That's what Elise had gone through. And then the hybrid motion that was made by Johnny on the vote.
Can I make-
Yes, of course.
Normally on the meeting, the meeting agenda, you can go online and see the wording, and the wording wasn't available because he pitched it like during public comments. So I don't know that the wording,
You're talking about Johnny's change.
yes, I don't know that we had the actual wording available to us.
And we should be able to get a copy of that because that copy, his suggestion was handed out to the council members.
He
And
op-
if they get
yeah.
it, we get it.
It should have been, should
there
it
weren't
not have
extra
been
copies.
noticed? 72 hours or something like that. It was a discussion item. It was a approval at the head of the agenda, and he opened it for discussion. He announced this third option, but didn't read the wording out, described it, and then they voted on it. So I don't know that we as a community did have the opportunity to see that wording.
Okay, and
Be able to find out?
I could certainly find out, and if it's part of the ordinance, it's public record now.
Yeah.
Right.
But
the
it's,
advance notice is what I'm confused.
that I don't know, and I'm happy to get you copies of that especially. I know that was sort of the point of contention, is how is the district voting?
Right.
I think it was the February 26 meeting.
Yeah.
I watched it and was listening to it remotely, and I know that was really the sole point of discussion.
Yeah, that was a long
Was the
discussion
one
in that
property, or, what if you had multiple owners of one parcel? So, yeah, I know this had been getting discussed.
If there's new wording, doesn't it need a Brown Act notice?
Yeah, and my other thing, and I'm not sure, I may have to ask our city attorney, Matt Summers, is the fact that you have changes, is there another reading?
Mm-hmm.
Because if that wasn't incorporated into the ordinance that night, normally an ordinance has 2 readings anyway,
Right, and that was
before
the
it's
second
effective.
reading that night.
And that means 2 readings without changes. So you
Yeah.
technically adopt the second's usually a formality, there's almost no discussion. But if there's a text change, which this was, that may require another reading before the council to actually adopt. So there could be a lag time before it's actually effective now. I'm not saying it's going to change, but it may not be effective because of that change. The types of changes that Elise had suggested were clearly deemed just
Yeah, those were
grammatical.
minimal.
They changed nothing substantively, unlike the vote on the district does. That's new altogether. So I will get you that and then see if that's going to appear on, say, the next city council agenda
Thanks.
again.
Therefore, we don't have a historic we'll have to wait for it to be published, right? The historic-
Oh, to be final in that form, yeah.
Right, so again, what was in the package Tuesday night was and it was under consent items, and then it got pulled. But it's still pretty much the document that's in place, other than the few minor changes that Elise, comma rather than a dash. And again, I would like to get a copy of what Johnny had passed out to the council, just because, so I could try to understand what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And
had
anything that's
no clue.
handed out at a meeting is part of the public record too. So,
Right.
but yeah, if you were to go on the link, say on the website, and click on March 12 City Council meeting, look down, might
No.
be, I don't think so though. I mean, I think it's going to be what was available prior to March 12 only. So any change that happened as part of the meeting wouldn't be there.
So
Yep.
I did go on the agenda because I spoke that evening, and I looked
Right.
at and I emailed with Johnny, and he said he would open it for discussion, but the actual text that he proposed was not on the agenda. It wasn't noticed when the agenda was noticed. That's my confusion. It was, the text should have been noticed since it was not a minor change. So,
I mean,
I think that's. a
you very
little-
often things change.
Yeah.
Part, like if it was, say there was no text handed out, but they came up with that, it wouldn't. But the point's a good one, is you want to see the ordinance as it's going to now be in effect.
Right.
So,
And, if I'm not much on waiting for 6 months, but I understand that takes place. So again, just, that what Johnny had suggested would be beneficial, I think, to
right,
all of
and
us.
I don't think
Just so we're
you
aware.
need to wait 6 months. I wasn't sure how long before it showed up online, because I know there's a lag time.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But we'll try to get you the final version, it's certainly by the next time you meet.
Where do we find, it's just in the meeting notes, we'll find the code, or where will we actually find the code?
The whole municipal code is online, so ultimately this would be you just need to know the section number, or you could even search by topic. Yeah.
And so it's just that one issue, so as long as the brochure doesn't touch that one issue, we can keep moving forward, even though it's not official.
I believe so.
Yes.
Other than if your brochure talks about the voting in historic districts, then I know, wait.
And it won't.
Okay. Future agenda items, if you look at, I am happy to see that we will have Mills Act training on April 11th.
Who's going to
And
be doing the training?
that was my question as well. Was this a staff research project, or were we looking to get someone? Because I'm not a Mills Act expert. I'm a
Okay.
planner.
I think it's just to discuss it.
No,
right?
it's the
Which actually-
training.
No, I was hoping we were going to get some training on it, because I think only one of us is a user, or
Two of us.
two, that's right, for the other house you were in that you
We've,
restored.
as a committee, as a commission, we've we've passed a Mills Act property recently,
Yeah.
last year. so-
Yeah, so I just thought it would be,
It would be really good to
Informational.
know, because it really would.
okay.
I
so-
just want to make sure we can get someone
Community
who can
Development
train you
Director.
on it.
Yes.
That's more my concern.
Can you work on that for us?
I'm going to see what I can do, other than I probably couldn't give you a thorough enough training, but I
Okay.
will see what we can do to, I'm not sure how in-depth we can get, but we'll try to get something on there that covers. Is this just sort of an overview, or are you looking for something in particular? Okay.
I think just an overview.
Okay.
What makes them, how do they qualify?
Okay.
that-
Yeah, what it means.
What are benefits of being on there? What are, okay.
Ongoing,
The brochure that Sherry, I think is in your office, is actually really informative, and I don't even know that we would need anything more in-depth, because the Mills Act actually is, well, we approve it for the county, but then the county assessor is the person that has to make the determination of the tax benefit to you. So I think pretty much what's in that brochure, we can talk about it and ask questions. And as Cindy and I both have done Mills Act properties and can see what the long-term effects are, we can discuss that. But I don't think it needs to be anything really formal,
okay,
because we are approving it, and if we understand what the criteria is for approving it, and of course, all the criteria for approving it is to have landmark status. So, I think it can be a pretty,
So
Straightforward.
So
yeah.
if we each get a copy of the brochure, we go through it, we ask both of you questions, and see if that's enough. And then if it needs to be more, then
And we can
go
research it.
something
I
like.
think
That
we
sounds
probably
great.
should.
Right, and then,
Yes.
the next person that you would go to then is the county, rather than the city, so.
Okay.
yeah.
If you go onto the city website, in the search box, type Mills Act, you can download the PDF of the brochure. You can learn from there. Like you said, it's very detailed. It's a great brochure. You can get an application. You can read the application, which also has an outline of what's needed. You can Google Mills Act. I mean, this is how I got my property, Mills Act. It was pretty straightforward. Ventura County has its own Mills Act information that you can find on the website.
But if we had, if we all had the same.
And then we can
kind
discuss
of
it. What I'm
training.
saying, yeah, you can read these things. I mean, the whole thing, maybe it's 45 minutes looking at all of this. And then we can come in and talk about, make notes and have some questions. I don't know if we're supposed to take that upon ourselves individually, but I
So
think
the
it's
Mills
doable, our
Act, does it
homework,
apply
right?
to the US government or just California
Yeah.
government?
We already printed all that.
We only care about Ventura County and
Ventura
Ojai.
County.
Yeah, the rest
Sure,
of
that'd
the
be
state
great.
doesn't
Sure,
affect
thank you.
us.
Yeah, so we do our homework.
It's just Ojai and Ventura County that
Mhm.
affects us. It doesn't matter what they do in Berkeley or
Mm-hmm.
Right,
anywhere
because
else.
each
Yeah, each
city
county
has
is
their
different.
own,
Each county's
and
different,
each
so
county.
we need to know how Ventura, what their thing is.
Well, we, as the city of Ojai, grant Mills Act status. And as Thais pointed out, it then goes to the county assessor and they deal with the tax assessment. But we have our own brochure with our own Ojai outline, which is basically identical to what they have in Ventura, because we copied it from Ventura. So they are different because it's the city of Ojai and city limits, but it's basically the same as Ventura. The only connection with Ventura is that the property taxes come out of there. So they reevaluate the property taxes. That's all they do.
Okay,
It's- yeah.
so can we just, is that okay with everybody? That maybe we'll do our little research first, we'll read the brochure, we'll come here, and then we'll discuss it, ask you questions, and then we'll come to you if we need more help.
Yeah, save us some
Absolutely.
trouble.
Yeah, that sounds good that if you can cover that, unless you feel like you need something further after that meeting, then fine.
But we're
That
here
would make
to
sense.
answer questions about our personal experiences.
exactly.
So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, so like, what are the qualifications, what are the benefits,
It's all in the brochure.
and
Okay.
how do you do it?
So we'll do our homework and we'll come with questions. That sounds good. Let's see, other future agenda items that we need to add, Mills Act Chair, Historic Preservation Awards, Playhouse, we got a update on that. We should have, so who has the report? This happened on the Noroff Grammar School. It was, who has the report? When does the report? We've been asking for it for months and months and months, and finally a copy, unbeknownst to me, who had been asking, shows up in the council chambers. And I was like, oh, interesting. So do you know what the path is when the Historic Resources report comes in?
Path will be staff's review of that, working with the consultant. When we consider that we have something that's final, it will come before you first. To me, it doesn't make sense to not take it here first.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I think we all
that's
agree
what,
on
it's
that.
what you do prior to going to city council. And I know from one of the consultant discussions I'd had, apparently one time the report sat and really didn't get reviewed. So when it came before, it was essentially draft period. That's not going to happen this time, so.
Is it realistic if you say it's supposed to be here by 4:15 to put it on the May, or do you think we should, for future items, or should we put it on June?
If we get it before, like if we get it more towards the end of this month, it would be realistic for May. If we get it the middle of April, probably June.
Oh.
So that's how only because it's not very lengthy, but I don't know how extensive the review is going to be and back and forth. But I think if it shows up, let's say, end of March, then first thing in May is more realistic.
Okay.
And comment.
Yes.
We should also add on next month's agenda for a discussion item our ad hoc committee summaries.
Excellent. And article dates, move that over there. Great. Okay, commission comments. Yes, Commissioner McCartney.
I I was going to be working with Elise on the walking tour, and she just took it and ran with it. She said she's much more comfortable having me look at it after it was done and walk through. First, I had the flu, now she has a flu, but we were going to walk it to make sure. I was going to do a Fitbit to make sure we know exactly how long it is, but it's beautiful. She did a fantastic job. She added new places. She took the time to just do it like she does it for the museum, but then even add to it from there. But she worked a lot of hours in, like Elise does, and she went back and forth until she really felt comfortable with it, with all the wording, and she did a good job. We're just we're going to do the walk to make sure it's we know how long it is. So maybe we should put that on the April agenda just to have everybody look at it and approve it as well.
Yep.
I was actually going to ask the question if she had put on My House on Aliso, because she's not asked me for any information or the report, so.
I will ask her.
I'll check. I have a copy. She gave me a draft of one of the meetings too. So.
Did you still want to put it on YouTube as a YouTube video? Maybe
Which?
the walking tour of Ojai?
I don't know. I hadn't heard that.
Gina was talking about it a while back.
Yeah, having one of us walk and talk and do the tour and have it up on, it'd be fun one day.
That would be fun.
Having done the walking tour with a couple different people, which is always interesting, version 1, version 2. Part of the problem is it's noisy. It's really noisy.
Yeah, that's what they said.
So, yeah, you would want to do it on, a maybe early morning type thing where you can record.
Midnight.
Huh? Yeah, it's noisy out there, but
Well,
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'd love to get the brochures all done first, and then we can
Absolutely.
talk about that.
Okay. What else do we have? Receive. Anything else? No? Ready to adjourn? We're done, 5:48. Thank you. Of course, it's on Valentine's that we go 2.5 hours, or 2 hours. Thank you all. Cindy. They're going after the planning commission.